In today's video, we'll check out the Pironman 5 Pro Max case by Sunfounder, which looks like a small high-end PC case. Complete with RGB lighting, impressive tower cooler, an integrated 4.3-inch touchscreen, a camera, dual NVMe slots, a mic, 3.5mm audio output, and much more. We'll cover the unboxing, the full assembly, software, and discuss OpenClaw, which I think you'll find interesting. The video is a bit long, so I've added chapter markers below so you can skip over those aspects that you already know. I've marked this video as sponsored simply because Sunfounder sent it to me for review. However, no money exchanged hands and all opinions are my own. I'm John, and welcome to Wagner's Tech Talk. The Pironman 5 Pro Max case includes a lot of tech and features. For example, it has dual M.2 slots, so you can install either two NVMe SSDs or the M.2 Halo 8 AI accelerator and one NVMe SSD. A 4.3-inch IPS capacitive touch display, a 5-megapixel Pi camera, a nearly 1-inch OLED display, 3 PWM fans and tower cooler, stereo speakers, and a USB microphone, all of which are self-contained within the case. To assemble the case, you need a Raspberry Pi 5. It won't work with earlier models. The Pi I'll be using in this build is the 16GB Pi 5 that I picked up several months ago, and have been waiting for a project like this to put it to good use. In addition to a Pi 5, you may also need a Pi 5 power supply, a micro SD card, 1 to 2 NVMe SSDs, or the Halo 8 AI accelerator and one NVMe drive. A keyboard and mouse, and a display is optional since there's one built in. When you first open the box, you'll be greeted with the assembly guide, which is something you'll not want to dismiss. The assembly will take some time. I'd estimate anywhere between 1 to 3 hours, so you may want to carve out some time for this very fun project. There are 37 steps in all. Some go very quick, while others take longer. We'll quickly go through what's in the kit, just so you see everything. But of course you'll see it again shortly when we put it all together. First, we have one of two acrylic plates. This one is for the side that will house the display, the 4.3-inch touch display itself, two FPC cables, one for the screen and the other for the camera, a micro SD extender, various cables and a power switch, camera mounting brackets, the 5-megapixel camera that will be mounted to the exterior of the case, a USB microphone, miscellaneous parts including the button cell battery for the RTC clock and more, various standoffs, screws and nuts, two speakers that will be installed internally in the case and play through the back, the OLED display, the USB HDMI adapter board, a tower cooler with a fan already mounted for you, two additional rear PWM fans, the NVMe pit board where you will connect the NVMe drive or AI accelerator. Notice the power pins are spring-loaded. Then we have a wrench and a screwdriver, the Pro Max hat, the front Pironman 5 acrylic plate, and the metal case. Here's a quick look at everything in the box. Next, we'll move on to the assembly. We'll now start the assembly. In step 1, we simply want to disassemble the two separate metal plates of the case. Locate the two screws on the back, here and here. Then simply remove the two screws to separate the two pieces. In step 2, we'll install 3 M2.5 by 8 standoffs into plate A using 3 M2.5 by 4 screws. Take one of the screws from the back of the case and tighten the 3 standoffs in these locations. Once done, it should look like this. In step 3, we'll be installing 2 different size standoffs, 2 M2.5 by 5 standoffs and two M2.5 by 6 standoffs. Install the two M2.5 by 5 standoffs near the center of the case like this. Now take two of the M2.5 by 6 standoffs and install them here and here. Put the M2.5 by 4 screw through the back and tighten each of the two standoffs. Once done, it should look like this. In step 4, we'll take the Pi 5 and insert the micro SD extender into the micro SD slot on the Pi. Now take the USB HDMI adapter board and gently slide it into the HDMI and power connectors on the side of the Pi. You may find it easier to gently wiggle it back and forth. In this step, position the Pi over the standoffs that we just installed. Then take 3 M2.5 by 18 plus 4 standoffs and install them into the 3 outer holes on the USB HDMI adapter board. They should be installed in these locations. Now take 3 M2.5 by 4 screws and install them into the 3 locations on the Pi 5. Then take 1 M2.5 by 20 plus 4 standoff and install it near the USB-C power port on the Pi 5. Here's a quick look at this step. 3 standoffs on the HDMI adapter board, large standoff here, and the 3 screws in the Pi here. In step 6, make sure the jumper is set to on like this if you'd like the HDMI audio to play through the speakers. If you'd prefer a different configuration, please see the chart on screen or in the SunFounder's documentation. Next, install the 4-pin header over the 4-pin port. Take the button battery, a CR1220 RTC clock battery, and insert it into the location here. We'll then take the 2-pin jumper wire from the HDMI board over to the port on the Pi nearest the USB-C port. In step 7, we'll connect the 2 internal speakers. Plug one into each of the speaker ports on the USB HDMI board near the HDMI connectors. Now take the 4-pin wire, remove the plastic cover over the fan port behind the USB ports if you have one, then plug one end of the cable into that port with the visible pin side facing towards the USB port. Give it a good push and make sure it's seated fully. In this step, we'll install these 2 cables. The longer cable is for the camera, the shorter of the 2 is for the internal display. On the Pi 5, raise up on the 2 tabs on the ports here. Insert the longer cable into the port nearest the Ethernet port, such that the black tape section is facing away from the Ethernet port. Then press down on the tab to lock the cable into place. Give it a little tug just to make sure it's fully secured. Then repeat the same for the display cable. Raise up on the tab, insert the cable with the black tape facing you, and push down on the tab to lock it into place. We'll now connect the PCIe FPC cable. Raise up on the tab, insert the shorter end of the PCIe cable into the port, and push down to lock it into place. In step 9, we'll install the thermal pads. Both sides have a protective cover that'll need to be removed. First, I like to position them where they fit best before removing the protective covers. This arrangement looks good. Now remove the protective cover from one side and position it over the chip, and then remove the top protective covering. Repeat the same for the second and the third until all have been installed. In step 10, we'll install the tower cooler. The cooler has 2 spring-loaded rivets that will be used to secure it into place. Position the tower cooler such that the fan is facing towards the SD card extender, then push down on the 2 pegs. I found it easier to use the screwdriver to get in between the areas and give it a little push to snap it into the Pi. Then route the fan cable towards the ports on the Pi 5 like this. In this step, we'll take the cooler insulation piece, remove the protective backing, then affix it to the side of the cooler and remove the outer protective cover. On step 12, we'll install the NVMe pit board. On the bottom of the board are these 2 pins that will connect to the Pi and are spring-loaded. On the back of the board is a 4-pin connector. Make sure to use this as your guide for installing the board. Put the pins into the connector and everything else will pretty much line up. Then push the board down and flush over the standoffs. Then, using 4 M2.5 by 4 screws, secure the board to the standoffs. Now take the FPC PCIe cable, raise up on the latch on the pit board, insert the cable with the black tape facing upward, and push down on the latch to lock it in place. Again, give it a little tug just to make sure it's fully seated. On step 14, we'll install an M.2 NVMe SSD. You can install 2 here if you wish, or the Halo 8 AI accelerator. It's up to you. I like to do a quick check just to make sure I know exactly where the standoff and screw needs to go, but the SSD sizes are also marked on the pit board. Using one M2.5 by 4 plus 4 standoff, install it to the location at the end of the NVMe SSD. Insert the NVMe board and push it down. Then install the M2.5 by 3 screw to secure it to the pit board. Repeat for a second board if you plan to install another. Now we'll take the Pironman 5 Pro Max hat, which also has a connector on the right side that we'll put to good use shortly. Take the board and line it up over the GPIO pins on the Pi, then push it all the way down so it's fully seated. Take a closer look at it from the bottom to make sure that it's fully flush with the connector. In step 16, we'll connect the 4-pin fan wire and the tower cooler wires to the 2 bottom ports on the Pro Max hat. Take the black 4-pin wire and connect it to the bottom port. It's keyed and can only go one way. Now do the same for the tower cooler wire. The blue wire should be at the very top of the connector when plugged in. In step 17, we'll install the 2 fans to plate B. The Pironman logo will be on the inside and the 2 wires will be in this position. Take an M2.5 by 12 screw through the back of the metal plate and secure it with an M2.5 nut and tighten it down. Then repeat for all 4 screws and nuts for the fan. When assembled, it should look like this. Now we'll do the same for the other fan. Keep in mind the wire here should be between the 2 fans. Then install all 4 M2.5 by 12 screws and nuts. In step 18, we'll attach the speakers. We're about halfway through the steps. You're doing great. Keep it up. Remove the backing to one of the speakers and affix it to the grill area below the fan. Do the same for the other speaker and place it in the area beside the other one. In this step, we'll simply connect the fan wires. Connect the wire going to the right fan here and the left fan here. And just a quick note that both connectors will have the blue wire at the top. In this step, locate the longer of the amber colored FPC cables going to the camera. Then locate the slot at the back that says camera and feed the cable through the slot. In step 21, locate the OLED display module. Flip the black tab gently towards you. Then insert the cable into the slot with the black tape facing you. Then press the tab down to lock it into place. In step 22, we'll attach both metal plates A and B together. Fold the speaker wires towards the inside of the case and bring the 2 pieces closer together and keep an eye on the speaker wires. They tend to easily get pinched or get in the way of other ports. I'd recommend at this point to add 2 M2.5 by 4 screws on the back to hold everything together. This isn't mentioned in the documentation, but it will make the next step a little bit easier. Now take the OLED module, remove the protective backing, and affix the display over the white crosshair markings on the case. On step 24, we're simply going to add the remaining M2.5 by 4 screws to the case. In step 22, we already added 2, so on the back there are only 2 remaining, which are here and here on the corner. So I'll go ahead and add them. If you look at the back of the case, there are 2 additional screws to be installed, here and here, so I'll go ahead and add them. Step 25 is going to take a few minutes, not because it's difficult, it's just time consuming. It took me about 7 minutes to get all the paper backing and little pieces off the acrylic plates. Just start on one end and peel back. You may get lucky and not have a lot of little pieces to deal with, but not me. I sped the removals up 30 times the normal speed, so that gives you an idea that this is a little time consuming. Great! The worst part is over. In this step, if you haven't already removed the cover over the OLED display, go ahead and do that now. Next, take the power switch and unscrew and completely remove the nut from the switch. Feed the switch wire through the hole on the Pironman acrylic plate F. The Pironman logo will be on the right. Then reinstall the nut back onto the acrylic plate and tighten it really good. You can use the included wrench to get it good and tight. In step 27, we'll connect the power switch wire to the port here below the cooler. Plug it in and give it a good push to make sure it's fully seated. Then use 4 M2.5x4 screws to secure it to the front of the case. In step 28, we need to prepare the display using 2 plate Cs and 4 M2.5x4 screws. Set the screen upside down. Take the plate, and you want to position it over the standoffs such that the second hole lines up with the standoffs on the display. Then install 2 M2.5x4 screws to hold the bracket in place. You may need to push down to get the screws through the tape, or you can use a screwdriver to simply puncture the amber tape. Then add the bracket to the opposite side by installing the screws. Make sure you're using the right holes on the bracket. In this step, we'll mount the display to the acrylic plate G. Make sure you're looking at the back of the panel. The front of the panel will have the GPIO pins etched into the panel, the back wall. Using an M2.5x4 screw, put it through one of the holes, then screw in the M2.5x10 standoff. Then repeat for all locations. You should have 4 installed around the display area. Then lay the panel flat and position the display over the panel. Be sure to remove any protective covering from the display panel before you do. Now install 4 M2.5x4 screws into the 4 standoffs on the back of the panel. In step 30, flip the tab in the up position on the display. Then take the FPC cable and insert it into the connector such that the black tape side is facing outward. Then push in on the tab to lock it into place. On this step, we simply want to attach the side panel to the case. Position the panel over the GPIO port. There are 2 pegs around the GPIO port. Make sure it's perfectly lined up with it and you press down firmly. Check it from the top to make sure there isn't any gap. Then add 4 M2.5x4 screws through the panel. With this case, I did struggle a bit inserting the screw here, but I did manage to get it in. And this is what it looks like. In step 32, flip the case upside down, then remove the protective backing of the silicone pad and apply all 4 of them to the bottom of the case. Please feel free to position them straighter than what you see here. Next, take the USB microphone and install it to a USB 2.0 port on the back of the case. On step 34, we'll connect the camera. Take the Pi camera, pull up on the black tab, then insert the camera FPC cable such that the black tape is facing you. Then push down on the tab to lock the cable in place. Be sure to give it a little tug to make sure it's fully seated. Next, we'll assemble the mount for the Pi camera. Put the camera through plate D like so. Position the camera over the holes in the plate and install an M2x6 screw through one of the holes. Then apply an M2 nut to the back of the screw. Hold the nut and tighten the screw, and repeat for all locations on the mount. Under the camera is a piece of adhesive. Remove the backing and press down on the camera to affix it to the board. In step 36, We'll take plate E and position it to the top of the case where the holes are located. Then insert 4 M2.5 by 4 screws through the holes. In our final assembly step, position the camera mount holes between the mount at the top of the case. Then insert the M2.5 by 38 screw through both holes. Tighten the screw, and congratulations, you did it! The assembly is now complete.
Nicely done, my friend. Next, we'll move on to the software setup.
Now that we have the case fully assembled, let's take a quick look before we jump into the software aspect. The camera mount tilts forward and back. You can also turn the mount if you'd rather have the camera facing the front of the case. You have easy access to the GPIO pins here. I do see one that's slightly bent, so I need to take care of that. The touch display is a nice size for the case. On the front you have the Pironman logo, and the power button and SD card slot. Around back we have the mic we added, plus the USB ports, Ethernet, dual full-size HDMI, an output jack, which is pretty nice, and a power input. I could have done a better job lining up the speakers, something that may be helpful to you during your assembly. I really like the look of the case. Let's try booting it without an operating system and see if we can get into the network boot screen. The lights are green, but it looks like a no. This means if you'd like to use the Raspberry Pi imager directly on the Pi without another computer, you will need to plug it into an external monitor or TV. The display doesn't show up unless you install an operating system. So let's go ahead and do that next. As mentioned previously, you can install an operating system using the network installer, thus not requiring another computer if you connect an external display. If you need additional details on that, I'll place a link above. But we'll start by installing an OS to a micro SD card from a separate computer. Visit raspberrypi.com/software to download Raspberry Pi Imager. It's available for Windows, macOS, Linux, and the Pi itself. It's a free download, then install it following the on-screen prompts, and go ahead and launch it. Since we'll be installing the operating system to a micro SD card, I'll insert the reader into my computer. I recommend not having any other externally connected media to your computer to avoid accidentally writing to the wrong drive. When Pi Imager starts up, select Raspberry Pi 5 from the list and click Next. We'll install Raspberry Pi OS 64-bit and click Next. Select your microSD or media you plan to use and click Next. Give the Pi a name such as Pironman 5 and click Next. Verify the localization settings are correct, and if so, click Next. Enter a username you plan to use for logging into the Pi, along with a password twice, and click Next. Enter your Wi-Fi SSID or network name, and the Wi-Fi password if you'll be using Wi-Fi, and click Next. If you want to allow another computer on your network to access the Pi through SSH, you can enable this setting. If not, disable it, and click Next. If you'd like to access your Pi from any other computer, you can enable Raspberry Pi Connect. This is a very useful tool, so I'll enable it and click the Open Raspberry Pi Connect button to assign an authentication token. Now that all settings have been made, click Write. If you're sure you selected the correct drive here, click I understand, erase, and write. This step will take a few minutes, so I'll go ahead and fast forward. Now that it's done, simply click Finish and remove your microSD. It was automatically ejected safely for you. Now we'll remove the microSD card from the reader and insert it into the Pi. We'll then add a keyboard and mouse. I'll use an external display for capturing some of the steps, so I'll plug that into the HDMI 0 port. And lastly, the power. PiOS Desktop will boot up. Notice the display is immediately working with an operating system, but I'd prefer to boot from the internal SSD rather than a micro SD, so let's go ahead and fix that. Now I could use the touchscreen for this, but my hands will get in the way of you seeing what I'm doing, so I'll use the mouse. From the menu, go to Accessories and SD card copier. In the Copy From device, I'll select the one that includes MMC in the path. For the Copy To device, I'll select the one that includes NVMe. I'll then click the Start button to clone the microSD to the SSD. When prompted if you want to erase all contents on the SSD, choose Yes. The copy process will take some time, so I'll fast forward. Once done, click OK and exit the SD card copier. Then go to the menu and select Shutdown and shut down again to shut down the Pi. Now that the Pi is shut down, I'll remove the microSD and press the power button to start it back up. Now the Pi will locate the OS on the NVMe drive and boot from there. We could speed up the boot time by going into Recipe Config and setting the boot device to NVMe. Now the Pi has fully booted from our SSD, but we have some additional software to install. After installing the OS, to take full advantage of the features of the Pironman 5 case, there is some additional software that you'll want to install from the SunFounder website. I'll have links in the description below for all of these steps. The SunFounder documentation is excellent, so we'll just quickly go through it here. First, open a terminal by clicking the terminal icon on the toolbar. Then launch Raspi Config by typing or copying and pasting sudo raspi -config into the terminal. Navigate to the advanced options, then shutdown behavior, then set it for full power off switch. After making the change, select Finish, but don't reboot just yet. We have another step before we do. Move down to the section for downloading and installing the Pironman 5 module. Just copy these commands, right-click in the terminal, paste, and enter. Next, we'll download the code from GitHub. Same procedure. Copy the commands, paste it into the terminal, and press enter. This step will take a bit longer, so I'll go ahead and fast forward through it. Once done, press Y and enter to reboot the Pi. Next, I'll demonstrate how to get to the web interface for configuring the fan LED colors and much more. After the Pi reboots, you'll notice the case looks a bit different. The front OLED display will now show your local IP address, CPU utilization, and temperature, which is about 48 degrees Celsius and very good. To enter the web configuration UI, open a browser and enter localhost 34001, that's 34,001, and press enter. The UI will show you the temp, storage, memory, network, and CPU utilization. In the upper right, click the Open Settings icon to bring up the configuration dialog. From here, you can change a number of things, such as a dark UI, show unmounted disks, all cores on the CPU, and more. Scrolling down, you can set the temp units to Celsius or Fahrenheit. You can adjust the OLED display settings. Further down, the RGB settings for the LED lights. For example, you can change the color of the fans using the color picker to your preference, the brightness level, or the style, which is pretty cool. There are a number of options here, such as a solid color, flow reverse, glow, rainbow, rainbow reverse, and more. Play around and find the settings that you prefer. One thing I like to do when testing a new case is stress test the cooling. At wagnerstechtalk.com/rpi5, you'll find the commands to install and run stress. I did that for the Pironman 5 Pro Max and started seeing some very unusual temperatures. However, they had nothing to do with the case itself, and I'll explain. It had everything to do with our assembly. There was clearly something wrong, and I opened the side panel to find out. Here you'll notice one of the pegs we installed to hold the tower cooler down, and it's just fine. But if we move up, the peg was clearly not pushed in all the way through the Pi 5 and the reason for our cooling issue. Fortunately, SunFounder includes a lot of spare parts, and there was another peg for the cooler. I popped it in, reinstalled the side of the case, and reran the test. I immediately saw much better results. I then added H-top to the mix so we could see the CPU utilization is 100% for all 4 cores. The highest temp I saw during this test was 59.4 degrees Celsius, much better than our initial test and slightly better than other Pironman 5 cases I've reviewed. Adding a built-in display didn't have any negative impact whatsoever on the cooling. One very hot topic today involves OpenClaw, which is an AI agent that can easily be installed on your Raspberry Pi 5 and is a great fit for use with the Pironman 5 Pro Max case. I recently released a detailed setup video on my channel and a written guide, which I'll link to below if you're interested. Sunfounder also has an excellent guide on OpenClaw for the Pironman 5 Pro Max case. For this setup, I installed Pi Apps, which made installing Telegram on the Pi 5 super easy and provides a way to directly communicate with your AI bot. With Telegram, you can run it on your Pi, your computer, your mobile device. Using that tool, I was able to do all kinds of things, such as telling the bot to take a picture and send it to me over Telegram. Here, I'll ask my bot, Larry, to take a picture from the Pi camera, and there we go. I also spent a little bit of time asking it to create a mini control center that works well on the 4.3-inch touchscreen. On the Stats tab, I can get a nice overview of the CPU, RAM, network, and host name. Much of this is visible on the OLED display on the front of the case, but if I move to the Camera tab, it provides a live stream from the Pi camera. The controls section is a work in progress, but will allow controlling the RGB fans, style, speed, and more. I didn't code any of this myself. I simply told Larry what I wanted, and it was built entirely with AI. That's pretty cool. Well, that brings us to the end of this video. I know it was a bit long, but we covered a lot of ground. I absolutely love this case. It's already my primary OpenClaw dedicated server. I reached out to Sunfounder to see if we could do a giveaway on the channel, and they were open to the idea. So if you're interested in a good possibility of winning a Pironman 5 Pro Max case, subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon so you'll be notified when that video is dropped. If you found this video helpful, please let me know by clicking the like button, and I'll catch you in the next video.